Hello, welcome to the Realtors. I'm David Blair. He's Trevin Perez. Trevin, how you doing today?
Hey, doing fantastic, David. How are you today? It's a special day for us.
It is. It is. I'm good. I'm good. I've got a lot on my mind. Happy about the topics we're going to cover today. Um, anywhere you want to kick it off, or you want me to start?
Well, I mean, you just glazed over the fact that today's a special day
Yeah.
for
What is
you
it?
and I, but not just you and I, for all of us. And it's
Okay.
Valentine's Day. So thank you
Oh,
for
that's right.
spending your day with me, and the rest of America on this YouTube video.
I'd rather spend it with no one else. With no one else.
So let's jump right into it. David, tell us about the latest concerns that you're seeing from your transactions, and I think it's related to title scams. What
Yeah,
is it?
so our buddy Chad Dean over at Calford Title called me this morning with my Valentine gift for the day, and that was to tell me that we had a phone call from a past mutual client that had a title issue on his property. His property closed 6 months ago. The underwriter just now got to, I guess, clearing up that issue. So that's good. That's good. I'm glad they got it taken care of 6 months after we closed. It's kind of irrelevant for both of us. He just wanted to make sure that I knew about it. So I did. But one of the things he shared, and I've experienced actually this past week, is that apparently there's a lot of scams that are going on right now, especially regarding vacant land. So if you own vacant land, you need to kind of make sure that you're maybe monitoring that, I guess, somehow. You may end up seeing that property pop up on the multiple listing service and you didn't list the property. He's saying that he's had a couple of instances within the last week where they're basically scammers are going out and trying to sell vacant land. It's land, of course, that doesn't have a mortgage tied to it. I have a deal going on right now that I don't know. Quite honestly, I don't know if it's a scam or not yet. The owner contacted me and they came through one of our websites and they have a property they want to sell in Flagler County. And they sent me the information. All of our contact was via email because they were in California. So we listed the property. We actually had some offers that were submitted on it this week. I spoke with the person that says that they are the seller. So I've asked them for some follow up information. There's a little sketchiness to it that may not be who they say they are. So we're going to have to find that out. So I don't even really know how that would work. I mean, I would think through the vetting process and through a title search and through having to submit your information to the title company. Eventually, wouldn't you think that's going to be found out? I would think you're going to find that out at some point before you get to a closing.
Yeah, you would think so, but these these transactions involving land or property with name changes and deed statuses are really tricky. I don't have a similar story, but like I was telling you off camera, is my client who's selling his home had recently became a American citizen and his name changed.
Mhm.
So now we're trying to do repairs as part of the contingencies and the repair addendum, and we can't pull a permit because of the name change. And so
Hmm.
now title is like, well, you'll get a new deed after closing. We're like, no, we need a new deed now to reflect the name change so that we can
Hmm.
then go get the permit change. So it's a bit of a cluster. But I guess that's what title insurance is there for, right? And it extends past the purchase. I mean, as you just said, after 6 months, they're still available. But it's a tricky subject.
Yeah. Yeah. You remember seeing it, I don't know why it popped in my head, but I think I was watching an old Western this morning. And I don't know if you've ever watched any old Western shows.
Hmm.
I don't think you do. I don't think you do. I
I
didn't think
love
that was your I didn't think that was your vibe of watching Bonanza or Gunsmoke, but I do. And what you like it?
loved Bonanza.
It's awesome. It's an awesome show.
It is. It is.
And one of the episodes this morning, they referenced millions. He was talking about the some type of like a gaming industry, and he's like, they're making millions. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, would they have known? Would that have really been millions though in that time frame? I'm like,
Yeah.
that seems high. That seems like a high number. I could see them saying it could be thousands or something like that, but not millions. That just kind of shows that maybe the producers of the show weren't really up to keeping those
Mhm.
numbers in task for when that show was shot, because that show was filmed, was the 70s or 60s?
I would say 60s.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. But for the era, it was not in the 60s. That was supposed to be early 1900s, maybe.
Well, now you're getting into Yellowstone.
Yeah,
Yellowstone was during the 20s. Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know,
That's what I'm saying.
so
So
I don't know. I never, I loved Bonanza growing up
yeah.
because my mom and dad watched it. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know the connection. Today, it's all about Westerns now, right?
Yeah.
Yellowstone has put the topic and material on the map right now. So we'll have to
Mhm.
talk offline about some of the shows I've been watching.
Yeah.
Dave, I'm ready to show up with my cowboy hat. You with? We're going to do it.
My point with all of that was on some of those shows when they would buy or they would acquire land, especially like in California during the gold rush, they would actually, you would run up a hill and stake your flag of your claim of land, and that's how you became the landowner. Is
Yeah.
you would run to these areas and you'd stake up this parcel, and you said, I own this, I own all of this now. So I want to go back to that. I want to go back to that model to where you can just run and you can just plant your flag and say, "Hey, I own all of this." I'd like to do that.
That's a great idea, but you better be slinging two pistols on your
Yeah,
hips
yeah,
because
true. Well,
you're
and
gonna
with
lose
and
it.
with a bad and with a bad knee, I'm not going to own anything. I'm not going to be able to climb up the mountain. I'm not going to be able to run up there. So I'm going to be at the bottom, and I'm not going to own anything. I'm going to own like a little parcel that's maybe 5 by 5 that's
Oh,
directly around my feet. So, but hey,
crazy, crazy. Well, that's
yeah,
why you're in real estate. Thank God, right? You got another
exactly.
career.
Exactly.
Hopefully,
So one of the things I see we're going to talk about today is real estate lingo. So real estate lingo can be the language that either a realtor uses, sometimes buyers use different acronyms, but it's mostly, I think, realtors. We use terminology in our industry that we try not to use that as much with a customer because sometimes they don't understand. So we wanted to kind of clear up some of those some of those items, lingo, vocabulary, if you will, and just kind of give you a little bit of a definition of what that actually means, what it means to you as a buyer or seller in real estate. So kick us off with a few of them. Let's throw a few of them out there.
let's do the best one of all that as realtors we love to hear, which is CTC,
Yeah.
clear to close. I mean, isn't
Yes,
that music to our ears?
it is. It is.
And clear to close is when the transaction between the buyer and the seller from
Mhm.
start to finish. We are literally a day or two, maybe if we're
Mhm.
lucky, 3 or 4 days before the
Yes.
actual close date,
Mhm.
when the lender will inform agents and the buyer and title that we're clear to close, meaning all contingencies, all potential landmines that could occur in the transaction are over and the lender's ready to fund this transaction.
Yeah.
And man, CTC, I think I'm gonna get a tattoo on my stomach.
The equivalent to clear to close and the feeling of that would be, I'll relate it to another acronym, which is EPT. So if you were looking at an EPT stick, the early pregnancy test, depending on which side of the fence of that you were on and what you're hoping for. Now, maybe you're hoping for kids, which, hey, God bless you, good for you.
Yeah.
But if you weren't, and you're on the other side of that, because it is Valentine's Day, and 9 months from now, you don't want to be looking at that. It's a relief. It's a bit of a relief. I'm just saying, and that's the feeling I think I get a lot of times on the clear to close, especially on ones where it's been a little challenging. Maybe there were some issues along the way. Maybe there was an appraisal issue or something along those lines. Yeah, that is one of my favorite ones. So the next one that realtors throw out a lot that you may hear is CMA. So CMA is comparative market analysis. And a comparative market analysis is just that. It's a market analysis on your property that gives you an idea of what's currently active in your area, what is sold recently, what's pending, to give you an idea of how long it's going to take to sell your property, what you can most likely sell it for, etc. Anything to add on that one?
Yeah, I love CMAs. I think the bigger challenge with them is convincing sellers that it's not malarkey and
Yeah.
it's like bona fide, legitimate data. I just
Mhm.
had a listing appointment yesterday. We had 10 sales, we had maybe three actives, one pending, and the client's thought process is, I don't like your number that I want to list a home at. And I think my home is better at the price that Active has it at. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, it's not relevant. The CMA report, like, I think that it'd be great if we can quantify and provide more insight to justify the use of it. So I've been using ChatGPT to play therapist, counselor, and
Sure.
best friend to help find words that are not in our lingo language to
Yeah.
describe and explain it to clients so they can better trust the information we're providing.
Well, so a little deeper dive on CMA for me is, I think, and I think we've done this to ourselves as realtors. You see you see a lot of information out there that, hey, I'll offer a free CMA. And I think when you're giving something out like that and you propose, hey, we'll give you a free CMA on your property, you're kind of devaluing that information a little bit. A CMA, if done correctly, is almost as it's not as legitimate, but it's almost as good or comparable to an actual appraisal of the property. If you're going in and you're pulling properties from the MLS that are true comparables to that home, then it's very good information for you to use. Now, what you choose to do with that is up to you and your realtor. So I've been on that same side of the fence where customers look at it and they don't view it the same way. I think if you're very familiar with your area that you're working in, you kind of have a feel for things sometimes as far as what properties will sell for. The CMA, a lot of it is black and white. It's information in the MLS, this many square feet, this many bedrooms, baths, this kind of lot, location, that sort of thing. But I'm sure there's areas in your area, as there are in mine, where you just kind of have a feel for it after you walk through the home of, this property has that it factor. It's really going to sell quickly. It probably will sell for at the higher end. Maybe it's on a nicer street than some of the other homes within that neighborhood. So there's several things that go into that, as opposed to just, okay, we pulled up every 3/4 bedroom, two bath, 1,500 square feet, blah 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 information for you. So good information, I think, for a seller and buyers to look at as well when they're pricing. Because a lot of times I do that on the buyer side, show that buyer, okay, this is where I would probably comp that out at, and these are the comparables for that property. So when they're making their offer, they're making an intelligent offer, and it's not just based on speculation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so I would say the next one that I'd like to bring up are contingencies. And contingencies, there's a huge list and plethora of items that fall in this category. The first one is the deposit money, the escrow deposit money. You go
Hmm.
under contract as a buyer or as a seller with the buyer, and then the buyer has 3 days to issue the escrow deposit. Without that, there's no official contract. It's voided, right? So that's a form of a contingency. The next form of a contingency is the inspection.
Hmm.
You have X number of days to get the inspection done, then to perform after the inspection, repairs or whatever. You usually have until the end of the transaction, right before closing, to get those repairs done. Without that being done, the deal is going to fall apart. There's challenges. That's another contingency. The last contingency I'll mention here is the appraisal. And the property doesn't appraise for the contracted price, then we have to renegotiate the numbers because the lender's not going to loan the buyer the money to buy at that price. Let alone the buyer's not going to want to overpay on that price. So
Yeah.
there's other contingencies as well, but those are just when we talk contingencies, anything that truly has a legal effect on the contract performing and moving forward. What would you share on that?
So I've actually got a conversation this afternoon with buyer slash seller about contingencies, and one of the contingencies that we're going to talk about, I think, is actually one of the toughest, and that's a contingency on selling their existing property before they make an offer. So the challenge with that I've tried to explain to several buyers in that position over the years is that when you're making an offer contingent on the sale of your home. Now, when I say the sale of your home, not the closing. The closing is different. The closing means that you've got an offer on your home. Ideally, you've gone through inspections. That other buyer has financing, and you're just waiting on a closing date at that point. So you're as close to the finish line as you can get in that scenario. The other, where it's contingent on the sale, you're right at the beginning of that. You haven't done that yet. You're on the market, and you're still waiting for a buyer to come into place. If you're a seller that's on the market and you're looking at offers, the first thing I think is that it kind of takes away a little of a lot actually, of your ability to negotiate on the property itself, because the biggest thing that you're asking for from that seller is that you're asking them to take their property off the market essentially while you sell yours. So they're no longer on their own time frame, they're on your time frame. So now they have to wait until your property sells and goes under contract before you can proceed with the closing. So that's probably one of the toughest, I think, that I've seen as far as that contingency, and so we're dealing with that. But we'll work through that. I've worked through those before. We've done those contingencies to where it is contingent on the sale, and we've been able to get the property successfully sold, lined up the closings. So it is something that is doable. It's just difficult.
Yeah, they're disgusting. We don't
Yeah.
like them.
MLS. So MLS, if you don't know what the MLS is by now, you're probably not in the real estate market at all. You're not looking at homes. It's not on your radar at all. So multiple listing service, and there's several. So we currently in our area, we have, I'm a member of the Northeast Florida Multiple Listing Service. There's also the St. Augustine Board of Realtors. So there's a St. Augustine MLS. Stellar, I think you're a member of Stellar as well.
Yep,
Okay,
I'm a
so
member of Stellar.
Stellar
Yep.
is in your area, but the MLS is different now. So the MLS now, when I go on to NEFAR, Northeast Florida Association of Realtors, when I go onto that MLS system, it actually allows me to see every listing that's out there in the MLS, whether it's in my MLS or if it's in Stellar or St. Augustine. Does yours have that same option of being able to see those as well?
No, because what I find when I do a transaction that is north or outside of Stellar's realm, like if I do something in Jacksonville, I know that I have to jump into the NEFAR and post it there because the public reach is just a
Yeah,
little wider than what
yeah,
Stellar's is. Same with like going south. If I go to Miami or South Florida, Stellar
mm,
doesn't reach down there.
yeah,
Now there is an aspect of what is it called? It's called MLS Advantage,
yep,
which is a website portal that's
hmm
connected to all the MLSs that allow all of them to broadcast, almost
hmm
like a Zillow, but it's within the real estate world. But it doesn't seem to have the same reach as when I
hmm
go to NEFAR or I go to
yeah.
Miami.
Yeah, NEFAR is really good, and the importance of that is if you're out there, listing on the buying or selling side, the importance of that from a selling standpoint, just broader exposure. Your property is exposed to more agents, that are out there within the different MLS systems, and same thing on the buying side. So let's say, for example, you're a St. Augustine agent that doesn't have access to those other MLS systems. You might not even see those properties. Those properties are out there now. You'll see them through a Trulia, Zillow, Realtor, things like that. But what happens is those come back and they're associated with an ID number, and you go to plug that number in, and you're like, "Huh, I can't find that property." Well, it's because you're not a member of that particular MLS system. So that's the MLS.
Yeah.
What's next on our list?
Yeah, so I think that we sort of covered this one, EMD,
hmm
the earnest money deposit,
hmm
where when the buyer contract starts, they have those 3 days to make that deposit on the contract. Without that deposit money into the title office, there is no contract. It can just be voided. It's just a waste of everybody's time. And why sometimes they won't make the deposit is probably because they have cold feet as the buyer. They just change their
Mhm.
mind. They really don't want to
Sure.
move forward. And honestly, that's probably your best and only time to walk away outside of doing it during the inspection. But at that point, you're spending money and investing time into, researching this property, inspecting it. So, the best bet is don't put a contract out. You
Yeah.
don't want to
So
do EMD. Don't waste your time in writing a contract and signing it because it's a legal contract. And Yeah, so that's what an EMD is.
what's the average percentage of
Oh,
earnest money for your area?
great question. Yeah, 1% is typically 1% of the total purchase price is
Mhm.
ideal for your deposit. So if
Yeah.
it's $250,000, then you
Mhm.
should put down a $2,500 EMD deposit.
Yeah.
But I know in some cases, especially if it's a good price house, over 500, six, whatever it might be, sometimes you'll go and put more money. What's the average for your area?
It's 1%. It used to be when I first started, as it's crazy to think of now, but it was $500. You could actually put down $500 as a binder deposit. Now, even then, that was considered a little weak, and it is now. So the question you get from buyers a lot of times, not so much anymore in the current market. I haven't experienced it, but in the past has been, well, if I'm doing financing, I'm doing 80% financing, 90%, 100%, whatever financing I'm doing, and they're getting all the money. Well, what difference does it make what binder deposit I put down? Well, it matters because it marries you to to that deal. You need to have from the seller's side, you need to have some skin in the game where you can't just flippantly walk away from the transaction. And in the case of 500 or maybe $1,000, it's pretty easy to just walk away from that and say, okay, well, you can go ahead and keep my money, and I'm going to walk away. But maybe I've taken 30 days of marketing time away from you now, because that's how long we've been through this process. So
Yeah.
always on the selling side, definitely you want to have a really secure binder deposit that's going to cement that deal, keep that buyer at the table to where they just can't flippantly just walk away. I would imagine if deposits were a lot less, we'd probably see a lot more of that because anything could happen. Another property could come on the market that that maybe spark that buyer's interest, and they could just you'd see cancellations left and right if the deposit amounts were smaller. So I think that 1% as a minimum is typically what I would tell any buyer. But if
Yeah.
they can do more, especially if you're competing, whenever we're competing with another offer, I always tell the customer, can you do more in the binder deposit? Because if you can, it just makes our deal look stronger. So you go ahead and do a little bit higher binder deposit to show that you're committed to the deal.
Yeah, and on that note, I just add that typically we'll see the $500 or the $1,000 typically from investors,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
lowball investors who are trying to wholesale the contract
Sure.
and flip it. They're the ones who are trying to avoid any kind of commitment on the front end.
Right. Right. And they're putting out multiple offers too. So from their standpoint, they don't want to, they don't want that cash outlay of where, they've got maybe five offers that are out there submitted, and all of a sudden they get accepted and now they have to do deposits on each one of them. So I see the same thing. So next one on our list is an ARM. So ARM, I don't see much.
Like
I see a
this?
little bit. I see a little bit. And that's adjustable rate mortgage. So an adjustable rate mortgage used to be really popular, and it almost killed our industry, in my opinion. And that was several years ago when that happened in our correction market of 2007 through 2015, whatever that was. It was a very popular mortgage where you could get a much lower rate. So the attractiveness of that was your payment was significantly less because your rate was a lot less. And I know that in the current market where interest rates are around 6 to 7, I know people can be tempted by that. I'll give you my viewpoint and then I want to hear yours. I'm not a fan. I've just never really been a fan of it. Maybe you'll shed some light on where it would make sense. You know, I think the premise years ago was that, okay, well, you can get a lower rate now, and then when the actual rates drop down, you can go ahead and refinance and you're kind of cemented at that lower rate overall. And that's the upside. That's the benefit to it. I think the negative side to that is it can do the opposite. It can start to adjust up. And then what happens, and what happened during that correction in 2007 on, was that your interest rate went from, let's say, a 4% up to an 8 or a 10 or a 12 in some cases. And you lost the house because you just couldn't afford that mortgage anymore. So adjustable rate mortgage is a scary acronym to me. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I still thought it was my arm. It was the people's elbow, wrestling and Hulk Hogan. But no, I'm a big fan of westerns and wrestlings. Just for my audience to know, holla at me. But back to arms. I'm a fan of them in the right context. For example, I have a investment property where we're doing a 5-year fixed rate.
Hmm.
And then after 5 years, we have to refinance. The
Hmm.
goal or strategy or plan was, well, it was intended to be a flip.
Hmm.
But Hurricane Ian said, no, we got one for you. So we had to pivot and rent it. So we're into year 3. We got 2 more years. We got to decide. We have it on the market listed for sale. Market's a little slow, so we'll play the market or we'll rent it again for 2 more years.
Yeah.
And at that point, if we can't sell, then we'll refinance to get whatever the current investor rate is. For a DS. Oh, that was another acronym, but I won't add it. But yeah. I like the adjustable rate in that respect, just because it gives you a little time to flip in and flip out. Whereas a standard
Yeah.
30-year mortgage has prepayment penalties for the first 5 years. It's like a scale where if you sell it in the first in year 1, it's 5% added to it. Then year 4, 4%, 3%. Until you get past the 5-year mark. So in an adjustable rate, there's no prepayment penalties.
Yeah, so definitely a different viewpoint for what you're using it for. Your side of it definitely makes sense with the investor component to it. My side was from that of a homeowner, buying a home that they're going to live in, and just some of the challenges with that. So speaking of homeowners, one of our favorites, my favorite is FISBO. So FISBO is for sale by owner. There's actually, I think, websites that FISBO.com and various sites that are out there. And that's just as simply, stated as what it is. It's a person that is selling their property on their own. They've chosen to sell that property without the assistance of a real estate agent, which happens quite often in any market that you're in. One of the interesting facts I'll throw out, and then I want to get your take on it, is so FISBOs, as they may or may not like to be called, but that is the acronym. I was reading in the NAR studies, and 90, as high as 92% of homeowners that attempted to sell their homes last year still used a real estate agent. And that was in some form or another. So what that meant is that maybe they didn't list the property open on the open market, but they either compensated an agent, maybe an agent contacted them and said, "Hey, I have a buyer that looked at your property. They're really interested in purchasing. Would you offer a commission if I brought the buyer into that scenario?" And they did. So even though the attempt a lot of times is to handle that transaction on your own, I find that most end up dealing with a realtor or title company or that thereof, during that process. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, FISBOs are yeah, they're definitely an interesting bunch.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard for they can remove the listing agent potentially if they use a lawyer or a title company.
Mhm.
But buyers agents are going to ask for commission to be compensated to them if they present a buyer. So yeah,
Yeah.
you're paying one half of the fees, if not all of it, because you're paying additional costs to title or a lawyer to do additional paperwork and represent you. So you're really not skinning the cat a great deal. You're just saving a couple of points that maybe if you just negotiated, with the agents, given the NAR lawsuits. I mean, that just highlighted the fact that negotiate, work a
Yeah.
deal out that, represents the best use of the skilled labor of a real estate agent and saves you a little money in the process. Because I think there's also a study, David, that shows that 9 times out of 10, these sellers always get more money when a realtor is involved versus when they sell it on their own. They just leave money on the table. It's like you got a full plate of food, you're really hungry, you want to eat it all, but you decide to only eat 50% of it and throw the rest away. So you're just blatantly throwing away part of your food. And
Yeah.
with the price of eggs, as David just showed, for equates to, what was it, 31, 32,000 cartons of eggs?
Buy a single family home in my area for 350,000, or you can get 31,000 carton of eggs. Your choice.
People, don't throw away eggs. They're too
Yeah.
precious. Okay,
Well,
for
so
those.
to add on what you just said, that's a good point, because I do point that out a lot of times to for sale by owners. Because so here's the scenario: if I'm a buyer and I can contact Trevin or David, and I can say, "Hey, guy, can you show me these properties that are on the market? Can you meet me? Can you pick me up? Let's go take a look at these properties. I want your professional analysis of those. Tell me where the comps are. All of those things. You know, so if you can do that, or you can just go to a for sale by owner, by the sign or whatever. Which one would you prefer to do? Well, you'd probably prefer to just go ahead with the agent in that scenario. Um, my point with that is that you typically, as a for sale by owner, are going to see a scenario where, how do I describe this? You're just never going to you're basically arguing over the same money, I guess is my point. So if I'm a buyer in that scenario and I'm going to a for sale by owner, the reason I'm going to them is because I feel like I'm going to save money. I'm going to save money somehow. So I know they're not paying a commission. So that's my first thought is, well, you're not paying a commission. So I'm going to give you an offer that's maybe 5 or 6% less. So if I do that, then what have you gained as a for sale by owner? You really haven't gained anything. You're getting a lower offer, because the viewpoint of you not paying that commission. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah.
What do we got next?
I think that we went through our list. I
Yeah.
think we're at the pivotal point, which a lot of our viewers have been asking for us to bring back. So we're thankful for the comments and feedback from our growing audience on YouTube. It's just so massive. It's large. It's just incredible. I forget the other lingo word to use this, but kiss, Mary, kill. And it's Valentine's Day. So,
Yeah.
what better day than for us to bring in a theme about Valentine's Day
Mhm.
than for us to do our segment that everyone loves so dearly? So, with that in mind, the three choices here, David, for you to choose from with our Kiss, Mary, Kill are chocolate, flowers, or cards.
Okay. Um, So I will start with the kiss. And for me, that would be, that's tough. It's a little tough. It's a little tougher than I thought, because I'm thinking of some things in my head right now as far as gifts that I've given, and which ones are the most well received. Um, I would say chocolate. Chocolate is a nice touch. If your significant other likes chocolate, then you're in great shape. If they don't, then maybe you're not. And then there's all kinds of different chocolate. There's white chocolate. There's dark chocolate. There's milk chocolate. There's filled chocolate. There's the standard chocolate hearts. So I used to. So confession here. In my middle school days, I was quite the Casanova. I would deliver. I'd have my mom take me to the local Winn Dixie, and I would buy the heart with the silk foo on it, and it had like 10 or 12 chocolate hearts, and I would bring that to my girlfriend in junior high, and
Ooh.
I was known as the man about town. It was you know that $6 investment or whatever it was. So it went a long way. It went a long way. So the Mary, I would say, I'd say flowers. Flowers is symbolic of marriage. I think maybe that's why I chose that. It's kind of a given almost. I think that you're going to either send or give flowers. I don't think you probably give or send flowers as much now as you did in the past. I think in the past you do that quite often. You would send flowers, to your significant others, maybe workplace or home or something like that. You always want to send it to work. In my opinion, you always want to send it to work, not home, because if it comes to the house, it just comes to the house. I mean, I could have just went to the store and got those, but if
Yeah,
I'm sending it to work, now I'm impressing the masses at that point, and that's what you want. You want, as that person, you want to receive the flowers at your place of business. You want to receive those at work, and say, hey, people love me. They don't love you, but they love me. So you get to see that. And then
man.
the last one I guess I would kill would be cards. It's just because I know some people think it's sweet, sentimental. I'm not a card guy. I would probably, and maybe that's just receiving cards. It's nice, but ultimately it's someone else's sentiments that they wrote and not yours. So
Yeah, yeah,
now,
makes sense.
if you give me a homemade card, that's great.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
that
okay,
you took time and that you wrote. But if it was Hallmark, eh,
eh, okay, okay. I'm taking notes on how to say thank you to you, David. And
yeah,
being that you're a Casanova, you like flowers, and so okay, okay, good notes, good notes. All right, so I will say, and I would keep this short. I will say that for me. I'm gonna kiss a chocolate. I like chocolates; they're cool. Chocolates are chocolate. We all like them, and if she doesn't eat them all, then you know what? I'm gonna eat them myself. So it's a treat that I'm giving to her, but she's gonna share with me. So psychologically, I feel like I'm giving for both of us.
hmm
So it's just a great treat.
hmm
On the flower front, I would say flowers are absolutely merry. I love flowers, love roses. Um, I would say that I went the route with the wife 1 year of getting forever roses. They never die. I don't know how they preserve them, but she's had them now for several years.
Is
I
that the one
mean,
in the globe or no?
it's not a globe. No, it's you can see the petals. They're out and they're inside of a bunch, almost like a box,
Yeah,
and they're really beautiful. You just have to dust them off because those suckers get dusty sitting there, but they look just as good as the first day I bought them. And I don't know how they make their real flowers. They're preserved in some manner or another. So we'll have to
so
get them
instead
on
of
as a
giving new
swap.
flowers, you just dust those every year for today? You just dust
No,
those?
that would have been a good idea. You would think she would allow me to
Yeah,
do it that way, but no, that's not the case, which is unfortunate. I got to talk to her. Maybe you and the lady and I can intervene and have a mediation with her to say,
yeah,
listen, he got you forever flowers. Stop looking
yeah.
for flowers, right?
It's for flowers.
Especially since she's not good at taking care of flowers. Like for
Mm-hmm.
me, the rule of thumb to receive flowers is you have to be able to keep them alive for 30 days. And it's not that hard. But
Mm-hmm.
for my partner, she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't seem to have the attention or the green thumb or whatever it equates to keep them alive. So
Yeah.
I don't want to buy her flowers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but I still love flowers, and that's what I'll marry, right? I'm gonna kill cards because similar to you, I can't stand cards. I don't like receiving them. I don't like the pressure of trying to add words on top of what Hallmark had already created. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, really? The words are so cheesy. They're like everlasting love, dying love. And I'm just like, nah, I really don't feel that way. No, sorry. It goes on too thick,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, cards are no. And cards are really expensive, okay? We talk about eggs, cards are just way too expensive. We should do an analysis of card pricing versus housing. So, but that's what I got.
There should be like a straightforward, like an honest card maybe that you give that says,
Ooh.
you know what, I love you, but there's a lot of days that I don't understand what you're talking about, and I don't understand why we're having petty arguments and things like that. But I do love you, and I think that's nice in a card. Yeah, I would put that in a card.
Yeah, my version would be, on this special day, I want to acknowledge that I love you as my partner in life and my wife, but sometimes I wish you wouldn't talk so much.
Yeah, yeah,
And maybe just let me say a few more words, before you cut me off. Like, can I
yeah.
have more words to say and add? And then,
Maybe if that came in a card, it would be better received. I think because it's in a card.
it isn't a card; it's a loving card, and it's a
Yeah,
pretty card. We might have an angle on a new vertical in the card business.
yeah, yeah. I think so. Well, I mean that's all our time today. This is episode
22.
22. Deuce deuce. Okay. All right. Well, again, thank everyone for listening. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your subscription to this channel. We hope it's informative. I know our subscribers went up yesterday. We're leaning on people to subscribe. Trevin, close us out.
Hey, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's Valentine's Day. Please do something special for your loved one. Don't take our recommendations on Kiss, Mary, Kill, especially if it was negative. We do not advise legal representation about Kiss, Mary, Kill. So don't get in trouble with your spouse because of advice that David and I have shared with you today. We wish you the best and have a fantastic weekend. Thank you.
See ya.